Okay, recording online. Oh, 3, 2, 1. Weird, you're blurry. Okay, well, hello there. Welcome, everyone. You seem blurry. Why are you blurry? Are you blurry on your side there, Matt? Or
No, not at all.
okay, you're blurry on my side for some reason or another. But I guess that's just the way things go. It is over. It's a thud, like a thud, really. The Colorado Avalanche win 5-1 tonight. The series is now over. They have lost in 5 games. We are going through the handshakes now as we speak. We'll get to the Flames here in a second, Matt, but I think it's only appropriate to congratulate the Colorado Avalanche on a really successful series. Nathan MacKinnon was absolutely dominant. Yes, absolutely. I think that's one story in this thing. The other thing is Mikko Rantanen was a complete domination. Their defense was pretty underrated. They found a way to get a stick everywhere. Philip Grubauer made saves. He wasn't busy, but he made saves when he needed to. He didn't have to make anything too super spectacular since Game 2. And maybe Game 4 but he was solid. So full marks to the Colorado Avalanche as they are going on to face either the Las Vegas Golden Knights or the San Jose Sharks in the next round of the Western Conference. That will start later on next week. So I think let's start there. Congratulations to the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, I agree. And they did a great job. They completely neutered the Flames, and that was it. Like, Calgary had no options at all. They had no second gear at all. And credit to Colorado for shutting the Flames down.
Yeah.
It was an excellent performance by them.
Yeah. Johnny Gaudreau had 4 people around him all the time. There's nothing much he could do there in terms of making any offensive production. He tried his best throughout the series. Mike Smith was Herculean the first 4 games. I mean, today was different, but
he played all right today.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't what he was the first 4 games, but at the same time, the Flames had 10 giveaways in the first half of the first period. So What exactly are we expecting Mike Smith to do?
Put it this way, if you would have said that we would have got this performance from Mike Smith in the playoffs, I would have been expecting the Flames to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, we would still be. I would think that the Flames would. Yeah, if the Flames players, the Flames forwards and defense played the way that Mike Smith played in the first 5 games. Put as much of an effort, this series would have been over today, and the Flames would be having that wrestling going on. That's just the fact of the matter is. But I guess in a clinching game though, Matt. Again, we'll get to Johnny Gaudreau here in a second, but part of the reason that you can wrap Johnny Gaudreau around like a little blanket is you need a centerman to step up and be somewhere near him and to make a play. And again, I'm sorry, this was a very particular, I'm not going to point, there's lots of fingers to be pointed everywhere, but the guy is wearing an A on his jersey. Sean Monahan was invisible again.
Yeah, and this was entirely expected by me, this performance tonight. I think after our last show, I think I said that I'm expecting the Flames to lose 6 or 7-1.
Yeah, you did say that. I had faith. You were.
Yeah, and accurate.
You were accurate. I was the man of faith and hope.
Yeah, well, I was hoping that I was wrong. It's just that, there are some fundamental problems with this team, and the only way I give Sean Monahan any breathing room of pass on this is if he is extremely hurt and just playing because it's better that he's in the lineup versus not. And, like, if you look at last time that the Flames were in the playoffs, he was the only guy who showed up on the team. He scored 4 goals in the 4 games against Anaheim. And he was actually a very solid contributor both in that Anaheim series and in the series against Vancouver the 2 years prior. So, I'm not really exactly 110% sure where Sean Monahan went after the All-Star break and who this imposter was that replaced him. You know, you might as well have if you said that, thinking of, like, Game of Thrones with the Faceless Man, that it was Joel Colborn.
Yes.
Because that's basically what you got.
Yeah. Yes, maybe that's a possibility. Sean Monahan, the real Sean Monahan was kidnapped, and we have a new Joel Colburn-like or someone who is a different man than Sean Monahan. Quite possible there. And so we'll go through the first period here. Colorado gets out to a pretty quick lead, 1-0, and then Johnny Gaudreau has the breakaway, which leads to the penalty shot. Now, what did you think, Matt? Did you think that would have been a good idea to call a timeout there? Give Johnny a break before he takes the shot?
No. Johnny's good generally at being creative when he's confident, and he wasn't there. And you could see it. Like, if Johnny's confident, he skates in hard, he dekes out the goalie, and he scores. And there's no problem. But instead, he's not confident at all. He goes in as if I was skating. And, and the goalie's just like, okay, what are you going to do? Oh, that's it? Okay, stick out the leg. There you go. Okay, that was a save, I guess. Yay. Grubauer did not have any challenge with, that may have been one of the worst penalty shots I've seen, period. And, that was just a horrible effort by Gaudreau on that.
Yeah, I do agree with what Brian Burke said, that I think, I do understand at least where Brian Burke was saying, at least you come, maybe give him a timeout to give him a little bit of rest so he could build up some speed, because you could clearly see he was gassed after that, but it wasn't the greatest effort ever, no. which was unfortunate. And part of the theme that really came out in this series is whenever the Flames went down and had a chance and missed it, the Avalanche were able to find a way to respond with a similar chance and score. And it happened on more today. The overtime goal in Game 2, Nathan MacKinnon scores after the Michael Frolik chance. Game 4, Michael Backlund has a great chance. The Flames have a power play. After that power play, Mikko Rantanen scored to put this at a 3-1 series. There were many goals like that. And it happened again today because the Avs got up there 2-0 after that. So the first goal was Landeskog from Barrie and McKinnon, and then Mikko Rantanen from Makar. My gosh, is Cale Makar going to be something when this guy actually knows what he is doing? This guy is going to be a hell of a player. Colin Wilson, the son of former Flame Kerry Wilson, by the way, made it 2-0. And then TJ Brody scored late in the first period with 6 seconds left. The first time they scored in the first period in this series. So, quite incredible from Sam Bennett, 2-1. What were you going to say there?
Nothing. Just carry on.
It's like, oh, frick. Yeah. Hopefully that the Flames have some sort of momentum, and they got off to a pretty good start in the second period. Overall, they were carrying the play. They were getting physical. Hathaway had a big hit. Bennett met Zadorov. Things were kind of moving a little bit in the Flames' way, but 6:52, Colin Wilson from Mikko Rantanen made it 3-1. and it's just the air was back deflated, and then the Flames.
When that goal went in, I'm like, and game.
Yeah. And then 4-1 added more. The power play goal from Wilson, from McKinnon and Barrie. And I think another thing that happened in this, another theme that happened was quite common in this series as well, was the Flames' defense and defensive structure. It was pretty much a 5-alarm series at any point in the series anyway. But there was really no communication of like, hey, I'll take this guy. You take this guy. Like, they were not talking to each other. And that was pretty...
Honestly, this team played this series as if they had not, like, each player was on a completely new team. Never had a practice with any of the players on the team, and didn't have any clue on any sort of system. And, you're in the playoffs, so, the other team's actually going to be trying. Like, there was no cohesion in any way, shape, or form by anybody wearing a Flames jersey. It was one of the most pathetic efforts I think I've ever seen from this franchise, actually. Like, this stretch of games, because I've been following the team since they won the Cup, and, like, I can't, like, they had some embarrassing series, like, especially in the early 90s, but, like, this, like, at least the other team, like, the Flames tried in those series, and, like, even got up fairly well in those series, and then lost just due to some strange bounces and other weird things happening. But, like, I've never seen a team that was is the second best team in the NHL, and played worse than if they were the Edmonton Oilers without Connor McDavid.
I'm thinking back in my head, the only series that I can see that was even remotely comparable to this was the 88 series against the Smythe Division Final against the Edmonton Oilers. Because that was the year the Flames won the President's Trophy. They were expected to run roughshod. I remember all of the Oilers were like, the Flames are the favorites, and they got swept. I remember the Oiler fans were coming into Game 4 with brooms. It was that bad. But yeah, I can't any other series that was remotely this embarrassed. Like the Blackhawks swept them, but that was expected in the mid-90s when Jarome Iginla made his debut. There was a long stretch of no playoffs. 2006 when the Flames were up 3-2 to the Ducks. They lost.
Was more of a one bad game.
That was more one bad game. They got overwhelmed.
607 against Detroit was very similar to this series, but even then, the Flames barely made the playoffs. They limped in as the 8th seed and got thrashed by the Detroit Red Wings, who the next season ended up winning the Cup. So,
yeah, I don't look at that as like in that height of level of embarrassment there as this series would be. This is probably it's arguable which would be worse, the 88 Flames or the 19 Flames in terms of embarrassment, in terms of what happened. I mean, it's a little. I think the sting of the 94 Canucks when they came back from a 3-1 deficit to come back. But that was 3 overtime game winners for the Vancouver Canucks. So that's a little bit different, I think. But
one good bounce at any point, and the Flames win that series.
Exactly.
And probably go to the finals themselves. So that's just bad luck more than anything on that year. But that was more frustrating than embarrassing. But this is perhaps the most embarrassing conclusion to a season in Flames history.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's just, and then with the final goal, Rantanen scored his 5th from Barrie and McKinnon, making it 5-1, 57 seconds into the third period. let's quickly just go through some of the players here and kind of like in an early instant analysis. We'll talk about this tomorrow on the podcast as well. But to me, actually, I think I am open to the idea of just quickly right now giving Mike Smith another chance. I think he earned it. I think that the one interesting question that's going to be is this performance put him in a place where someone is going to maybe overpay him? That is the one interesting question that I have, but I'm open to giving Mike Smith another 1-year contract at least. But I think he might get an overpay contract somewhere else is my first instant reaction.
Yeah, for me, Dan and I on our show, we spitballed an idea of revisiting the Jason Zucker trade with Frolik that was rumored at the deadline, but expanding it to include Devin Dubnyk. And that, I think, could be a possibility. There are a few other options that I'd kind of prefer to have just as like a 2 to 3 year option, because I'm not sold on any of the Flames goalie prospects at all, including David Rittich. Stepping in. Smith, I think the Flames need to get away from Smith in that they kind of relied on him being that buffer in the defensive zone. And one of the things that I kind of noticed when he would start is that the team would be a lot more relaxed defensively to the point of being passive. And instead of going and getting the pucks themselves and getting the momentum going, they're stopped waiting for Smith. And everything's kind of herky-jerky all the way along because of that interruption, because of the lack of flow. And I think that's part of the reason why the Flames tended to play better when Rittich was playing, even though Rittich, for a good portion of the season, wasn't very good himself. Yet he was getting wins, and I think that was part of the reason for that. And I with the Flames having so many good offensive defensemen, I think having that little stutter in their game kind of screwed them up a bit. And I think that also, because Colorado, they were primarily a dump and chase team this year, and tactically, I'm wondering if it wasn't a bad idea to start Smith, despite Smith playing so well, because of the fact that Colorado adapted and played a completely different way than they were used to, and it exposed the Flames entirely, and then they found success with it and ran with it. And I think that if they had played their game the way that they were used to, that perhaps the Flames... The series goes differently, even if Rittich played worse than Smith did.
Yeah.
So, I'm just frustrated by the team, and I think that they need to make several changes after this.
Right.
Before this series, I was expecting maybe TJ Brody to get traded, Frolik to get traded, and maybe acquire a goalie at some point, whether it's Smith or somebody else. But I think now it's more 4 or 5 major parts moving. Not major, but,
Yeah, we'll go through the defenseman here. I think Rasmus Andersson was the Flames defenseman in this series.
I think I'll add one player who only played 2 games. I thought Yusuf Valimaki played extremely good.
Yeah, and they were the only 2 that really found a way to find some way to contain Nathan MacKinnon. I felt the top 4, Brody, Giordano, Hamonic, Hanifin, were completely overmatched. They were completely outskated. They were too slow. And I do think I think that the Flames are going to have to dig into the free agent market and defense. I think especially on the right side, I think that needs... It needs some improvement. I think that was shown there. that, I mean, Hanifin, like they're good. Hamonic and Hanifin were monsters all year, but I think this series kind of exposed them. And I think the Flames also need to look ahead because of Mark Giordano. He did get exposed a little bit in this series. He definitely is going to get the Norris. I'm not going to dispute that, but absolutely. I think it's time to make sure that that's at least built. And TJ Brody, I don't know what TJ Brody is the Chris Tanev of the Calgary Flames. I don't know what we're exactly going to get for him, but
because of his very good and cheap contract and the fact that he can play on the first pair and get about 35 points every year, I'm expecting a first and a good prospect for him if we were to deal him picks.
I do not see a first round pick for TJ Brody. I don't see it. I see a high third.
I don't see that. His contract's too good for that.
Okay.
I see the Flames because, like, I look at Michael Backlund, and, like, one of the things that worried me this season was him being the second line center because he's not that good. Like, he's a great third line center, and he has good chemistry with Tkachuk, but he's not that good. It's just like Frolik being on that line. Like, if he's above your third line, your team has some issues. And Tkachuk, because he's awesome, covered up a lot of those warts. I think that Brody gets traded for some sort of middle six type center that you could throw on the second line. Like, as a part of a deal. Like, probably the Flames adding a part or two.
I could, I certainly, I think for Backlund, to me, Backlund and Frolik, I think are more effective, and I said this in the series, Backlund can't, the 3M line cannot be your best line, can't be your number one line. They ended up being the number one line in a lot of ways. I guess in terms of James Neal, you can't buy him out.
Yeah,
but I actually do think that there is a place that you could trade him. And there's places like Ottawa and Florida and some of those, Arizona even, that need to get to the floor that could use him, or Buffalo. I don't think that I just don't know. Neil may be better off somewhere else. It's very clear that him and Bill Peters were not on the same page, not even on the same book. I don't think they were in the same city. I think they just could not figure this out for whatever reason. But I think that there's room you could get an interesting value for James Neal.
For Neal, I think that you're going to be relegated to getting deadbeat contract for deadbeat contract.
Yeah.
And, honestly, like, if Milan Lucic was not so slow, I wouldn't even be adverse to that. But,
No. No, Lucic.
Like, this is one of those where, one hopes that whatever was ailing him this season, he figures out if he's coming back and, is an NHL player. Otherwise, honestly, park him.
Yeah.
In Stockton, or waive him, or something, or just put him in the press box, because for all season he wasn't an NHL player.
Yeah, he had a tough time, no question about that.
And you're just kind of like, okay, when's the real deal showing up? And maybe he might turn it up in the playoffs. And no. So I'm not adverse to trading him. If they can get anything for him, great. Like, honestly, the only thing I could see is something like Carl Alsner from Montreal.
I think he's too slow. I that's not a guy I would be. I think that's a guy that I
know. Like, that's what kind of deadbeat contract you're looking at, and it's just unfortunate because Neal was just that bad. And it's bad when you'd actually prefer Troy Brouwer.
I actually thought that Neal was generally better than Troy Brouwer, but it wasn't. it was close and tight.
Yeah.
I think the other guys that I think I'm going to be going in the offseason, I have some questions about. I think Frolik is probably gone.
Same here. I would be shocked if he's back.
Yeah. I think about Mark. There's a legitimate question about what to do with Mark Jankowski.
I don't think he's back.
Yeah.
I'd move him. Ideally, like what I see this team doing is keeping Sean Monahan. Because I really do think that there was an injury there. Because he doesn't go from being like awesome pre All-Star break to not being the same player afterwards. Unless something went wrong. Like, it doesn't make sense why he would disappear like that. Like,
but he disappeared at the same point last year. That's my problem. And I understand that there was an injury last year, so I will balance that out and grant that. But I actually am open to taking trade suggestions for Sean Monahan.
Yeah, same here. Frankly, other than Tkachuk and Valimaki, anybody to me is fair game.
Is Gaudreau fair game?
Yep.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't know if Gaudreau is on my list. I think that
Gaudreau, I would only trade, like, it wouldn't be like a Taylor Hall type situation. It would be you'd have to get something fairly similar-ish back. Or high-end prospects back. Like, it included it, like a slightly different player, but good prospects as well. It would depend on what you're talking about, of course, but there would be a scenario or two where I could see him getting dealt. And, like if Tampa Bay wanted to, say, trade Point to us for Gaudreau, I'd be considering that.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm not sure I'm quite there yet with Gaudreau. I mean, maybe there would have to be a pretty significant offer. Tkachuk, to me, is a guy you don't touch. Mark Giordano is a guy you don't touch. Valimaki and Anderson are guys you don't touch. And I actually think that Sam Bennett has put him... I am not willing to trade Sam Bennett. Well, I mean, maybe I'm willing to maybe, unless it's a pretty significant offer. But I think that Sam Bennett was the one guy that showed some heart and understood what wearing the Flames.
Hathaway, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Frankly, Hathaway, a 3-year contract when he, because he's a free agent at the end of the year. Yeah. I think 3 years at like 1.5 is fine for him.
Yeah.
But, but ideally, like what I would like to see from the Flames centers for next season is Monahan being the number one, new guy who is like a 55-ish point second line center, somebody decent, but you don't have to be like ridiculously awesome. Just basically like getting Elias Lindholm, like where he was just okay in Carolina, and finding the equivalent of that. Someone that might be unheralded on their team, but might jump up here. Something good there. Move Backlund to being the third-line center, Derek Ryan the fourth-line center. I think that stretches your lines properly and has everybody in the middle being where they roughly should be in the lineup.
See, I think for me, I think that they need... I do not see Sean Monahan as a legitimate number one center in the NHL.
No, and that's why we need to have a good second-line center. Because you can flip them. If you have somebody else that's decently good as your second-line center, and say Monahan starts playing like this, you can swap the other guy with Gaudreau and maybe shake it up where that will work. It's just like Chicago having Anisimov instead of Kane on the first line.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. I don't know. I'm not convinced at this point that it was my concern coming in. I felt like Monahan was the 8th best number one center in the Western Conference playoffs. I felt that everybody was better than him, and it was my concern, and it turned out to be a key factor. And I'm not sure I'm ready to bring Sean Monahan in as a number one center. Here's a couple of quick things to think about. We'll kind of start wrapping this up. Are you open to the idea of Nazem Kadri? What are your thoughts on that off the top of your head?
I absolutely despise him as a player. I do not want him on this team at all.
Okay. So I'm just tossing a couple of quick names. We'll get into this more tomorrow. You're open to an idea of a Jake Gardiner?
Possibly, but I think there's better options out there.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Are you open to an idea of Tyler Myers?
That would be a good fit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just kind of some of the other things. Maybe to me, at least one more. A couple key top six forwards I think would help. But this is. Yeah, I think it's safe to say, for those that are just jumping on, this is probably the most embarrassing moment in Calgary Flames history in terms of what was expected. This was the retro jerseys are brought out. There was an expectation of a long run, and thud, it's over. Any last words, Matt?
Well, it sucks, but, getting thoroughly embarrassed reveals things.
Yeah.
This team. And it answers a lot of questions. And, it clearly puts red flags on a whole bunch of things in this organization that have to be sorted out and pronto. And it changes the game plan moving forward. Because I don't think, if the Flames say they went on and won this series and then, say, lost to Vegas in the second round, I think that the calculus is, we'll just tinker a little bit here or there and, make things better, window dressing, instead of core structural changes like the Hamilton trade last year.
Yeah.
And I think that this put a huge number of flags up of, okay, we need to address this, and that. And now it's Treliving's job to figure out how the heck to do it. And it's gonna, honestly, I don't see the Flames drafting in the first round this year. I think that pick's gone. In trade. I seriously, you have to add, I think at this point, a number of pieces, and I think trades will be one of the ways to go. And the team will have a lot of interesting questions to ask, because they do have a lot of good parts. There's a reason why this team was 107 points in the standings.
Yeah, absolutely.
The regular season, I view as separating, the talented teams at the top, the not-so-talented teams at the bottom, and the playoffs show the heart of each team. And the Flames are a very talented team that showed absolutely no heart in this series, and the Flames need to have a heart transplant.
Well, we'll leave it there. We'll be chatting more tomorrow. We'll have Sean on, Beardy Canuck. We'll be kind of talking a little bit tomorrow. I think Matt's going to join us as well. Maybe Dan. We'll figure that out tomorrow. But thanks, Matt, for joining us for all 5 games. It's too bad that these recaps won't be lasting much longer than that. It's rather unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, we'll be doing some draft preview stuff in a couple weeks, probably in June. A couple weeks prior to the draft and all that, to show what kind of guys, if the Flames do keep their pick, what's what and all that kind of stuff. So,
all right, we'll keep an eye on that. That's the Fireside Podcast. Follow them on Twitter. Follow Matt on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter as well. KVOLE. We will talk to everyone really soon. Thanks again for joining. Bye for now.